and welcome back to my channel. For this card, I am using quite a few Lawn Fawn products, including this Jellyfish Lawn Fawn ink, Joy to All, Yeti or Not, just using one ornament from this one, Furry and Bright. I'm only using the lights from this one. Super cute though. This Critters from the Past dinosaur stamp set. Now I didn't show you yet, but I also used Simon Says Stamp and Lawn Fawn Stamp Timber collaboration from I think last year. It's Seasons Tweetings. Okay, here I'm showing some more. Rarsome and Seasons Tweetings. So this particular one with the birds, that is no longer available. I am stamping all of these things in the Lawn Fawn Jellyfish ink. This is a Copic Safe ink. And I am masking off a few different things. The scarf and the little hat. I wanted these dinosaurs to be very wintry / Christmassy, which I know doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was inspired by my children. They both love dinosaurs. Right here, I'm just stamping this little light all over the little tree to make it look like it has a string of lights. And for my tree, I'm using E31, 55, and 57. I'm not super great with no line coloring. I'm just not. I haven't practiced enough, and usually when I do it, I don't do it with Copics. And it's a little scary. I think everything turned out mostly okay. You never really know how much you use the lines or how safe it feels to color when there's actually solid lines as opposed to these light ones that kind of disappear once you color. So usually I do lightest to darkest, back to lightest. I still do that somewhat throughout this card making process, but there are times where I jump straight to the darkest. And for my leaves on it, I'm using G21, 24, and 29. For this, I don't know, I was a little bit scared when I first did the first one, and I kind of got a little bit more comfortable with it, which is why I started to kind of jump back and forth between using my darks and lights. The one thing I do know, or did know, before I started was when you're doing no line coloring, everything's going to look kind of blobby, like just one big mess until you get darker lines to kind of separate the different pieces. So for my tree, I'm doing the leaves a little bit darker towards the center because they're all gathered together. I also tried it. What? Oh goodness. Trying to talk too quickly. I also tried to add a little bit of shading to the edge of the leaves just to make it stand out just a little bit more. Alright, next I'm using BG 000, BG 10, Y17, and Y38. Now I'm trying to make this dinosaur look a little bit like a snowman or snow dinosaur. So I wanted to keep the colors very pale, but I still wanted it to have a little bit of shading to it. And I didn't want to do gray because I felt like it didn't look icy enough. So that's why I used those. I also pulled out my colorless blender just to blend it out a little bit more. Now for the horns, I wanted those to look like carrots. So I did what I could with the colors I had. I don't think it necessarily looked that carrot-like. When I got finished here, I do go back over that and add a little bit more with something else. I did the little eyes with the black glaze pen, figured it could look like coal. And next I'm using E13, E15, and E18 for my T-Rex. For the colors for my dinosaur, or dinosaurs, there's two of them, I struggled because I usually do these things in like blues and reds and greens and whatever. This time I really wanted them to, I don't know, I guess look a lot different than the snow dinosaur that I did. So doing them a more, what I imagine would be a realistic dinosaur color, I feel like that helped just a little bit. And also I didn't want it to get lost with the other colors that were going on for the ornaments and the lights. So this was new to me. This was something I wasn't sure I was going to like. But after I got done with the T-Rex, I actually quite enjoyed it. For my darkest colors, I am trying to keep them in areas that will help separate or help distinguish, like the leg from the torso or the arm from the torso. So I use that pretty sparingly. And right now it looks pretty bad. When you go back over it with the lighter colors, it blends it better and it doesn't look so patchy and terrible. You just gotta keep messing with it until it looks okay. Another good thing about this is if I do manage to get something a little too thick, because it's on white paper and I have a white gel pen, I can just kind of color over my mistake. Wow, too bad I can't talk right. I can just color over my mistake and you can't even really tell that it was there. So like the tail, I got a little bit thick here just from having to go in so many times with the markers to get it to blend out. Yeah. Here, doing little stripes. Thought that looks very predatory. Just needed a little texture to the back of him. Also, when you color with Copics and you're doing no line coloring, you really have to make sure you're not getting too close to that line that you do see, because it will bleed out a lot from where you lay it down. Alright, for my other dinosaur, I'm using E70s, E70, 71, 74, and 77. I think these might actually be my favorite brown markers. I don't know why, I happen to really like these particular markers. I like the shade of brown that it is. And for here, as you can see, I started going with my lightest color, and then I started to mark out where the legs were separated from each other, or the leg was separated from the body a little bit, to kind of keep it from looking so blobby right off the bat. For my shading, I didn't necessarily pay attention to a specific light source, especially because it's no line coloring, because if I were to do that, I really don't know that it would have, I don't know, looked quite right. I feel like things would have blended into other things a little bit too much. So I really focused the darkest shading just in areas that I needed some kind of separation. And then the mid-tone, which I don't usually use the mid-tone, but the darker two, I did keep them more as the shadowy colors. And then, of course, the lightest one was the main part of the dinosaur. It's a little bit different than how I normally color when I'm coloring when there's lines. So just something to think about. You might not be able to color things exactly like you're used to. It's definitely a learning curve. For this dinosaur, after I get all of my brown laid down, I do go in with the darker two colors and add little spots on the back. I felt like if the T-Rex had stripes, this dinosaur needed some kind of texture too on his back. So he got spots. And for that, all I did was lay a few dots of the darker color, and then I went in with the second darkest color, and then I added even more dots around it, so there's some slight shade variation there. And of course, for the mouth, I just used the darkest color that I used to color him, and then for the eyes on both the dinosaurs, I used a black pen. Now here I'm using one of my Cricut pens, and I'm just trying to add little lines to my carrots. I don't know that I love it. I feel like it's too harsh. I did try to go back over it with my Y17. Not sure that that worked either. Alright, my red color, I am using R22, 35, 37, and 39. Next up is my green color combo, which is G02, 05, 09, and 29. And when you see the greens and reds later, I use some of the exact same markers. I just use the lighter versions. I'm also using C0, C1, and C5 for the little fluffy part of the hat. And I'm just doing little dot texture, and I'm trying to keep the darkest colors where I want either separation or shading. Now I will say I would not usually use 0, 1, and 5, but my C3 marker is running out of ink, and I don't have a refill. That's happening to a lot of my markers. Alright, I did add some additional texture to the hat with a white gel pen, and now I'm working on my little Christmas lights, and for that I just did a darker ring around the outside and left it lighter in the center to kind of make it look like it was lit up. And I know that makes no sense when it's wrapped around a dinosaur's neck. Alright, my B color combo, my green color combo, I did drag out a little bit more pastel colors for the very center because I tried to work with what I had and I felt like it was a little bit too dark. So for my R, I used R20 for the inside. And then I even went through and added a little bit of white gel pen in the center of them, and I smudged it a little bit to make it not so harsh. For the string, I am using a sepia marker. I contemplated using a different color, but this was handy. I didn't think it would look terrible, so I'm just going ahead and doing the same thing on my little tree too and connecting all the lights so it actually looks like a string of lights. For my ornaments, I actually colored these and they didn't cut out right because I used my brother's scan and cut, and at some point I had thought to use that same sepia marker to do the tops of the ornament, and I hated it. Like, I cut that part out of the video, but just know I tried it, it looked bad. So the second time I colored them, I did it off camera, but I colored the tops of the ornaments in with some cool gray markers. Now I'm going to take my Distress Oxide in the color Puma Stone and this Stitch Mountain Borders die. And I cut out my mountains, and I'm just going to ink blend over the mountains with this Distress Oxide. I'm not doing anything special. I am starting at the bottom because I know that the bottom is going to be covered by snow, so if I get like a weird splotchy spot, it's not going to matter. Now I'm taking my Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide and just adding that color to one side of the mountain and a little bit towards the bottom. This will just help it look like it's in shadow. I'm also splattering this color on the mountains a little bit to add a little bit more texture because I felt like it was just a little too flat before. Now for my card base, I'm covering the front in Tumbled Glass and Speckled Egg Distress Oxides. Not really doing anything crazy here either. I just wanted the sky to look a little less bright, which is why I brought in the speckled egg, but I still wanted it to be blue. I feel like the speckled egg gives it a little more icy look, maybe. And I did tape off the back side of that card just to make sure that my ink didn't get where I didn't want it. For my snowy border, I am using the Stitched Hillside dies, and I'm going to use the same markers that I used to color my little snow dino, and I'm just adding a little bit of shading to the snow caps for the mountains and just around the very edge of my hill border. I will use those same markers to add shading after I decide where I want my images. To save time, I don't show me gluing all these things down, so just know all this was done with liquid glue. I did glue all these down together, and then I figured out where I wanted all my pieces, and now, magic of editing, all my stuff's glued down. Well, most of my stuff. Anything overlapping I waited. This is just me adding a little bit of shading under everything to make it look like it's not floating, but actually sitting on the ground. And after that, I just use liquid glue to attach my dinosaurs. Now that my T-Rex is adhered, I am going to adhere the ornaments. I did want the T-Rex to be holding an ornament, like he's about to put it on the tree, which is supposed to be kind of funny because they have short arms. I don't know, maybe nobody else would think about that. I was able to tuck some of the ornaments behind things because the edges didn't get fully glued down, which was good for me. And here, when I cut this dinosaur out, I did it by hand because my Scan-A-Cut wanted to chop pieces apart. So I ended up cutting the bottom part of the string of lights off, which actually worked out really well because then I could reposition them any way I wanted. For the little bit of white edges where it wasn't snow, I used the coordinating color, which for that was my dinosaur. And that was what, E70. And I just colored over it so it didn't look like it was out of place. One of the last finishing touches I do is I use this Wink of Stella brush, which is a glitter brush pen, and I glitter all of my snow and my snow dinosaur. I was hoping that this would help my dinosaur actually look a little bit more like snow, because even though sometimes I looked at it and I thought, yep, that definitely looks like some kind of snowman or dinosaur or whatever, there were other times where I looked at it and I was just like, nope, looks like an albino dinosaur with weird colored horns. Let me know down below if you think it looks weird or if it looks okay. After that, I stamped my sentiment, and that came from a couple different stamp sets. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll see you in another video soon. Bye!